Hi, my name is Barry Crampton. Welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Car Dealer. And today's story is called Generating Sales Leads. So I saw a message on Twitter the other day saying that somebody had telephoned a Mercedes-Benz dealer and 24 hours later they still hadn't had a return phone call. Everyone's first reaction was that the dealer had no excuse for that. But my own experience tells me he did. When I was working as a sales manager at Mercedes-Benz, I had to attend a meeting with all the other sales managers and dealer principals. The bigwigs at Mercedes-Benz were going to tell us how to sell cars. In my opinion, I was wasting my time there, as my sales team were way ahead of target, and I'd forgotten more than the speaker would ever know about selling cars. I remember the guy to this day standing on the stage in front of us all with a pained expression as he covered his eyes with his thumb and forefinger, shaking his head from side to side. It was very dramatic. He was on the stage, expressing his concerns that Mercedes-Benz had provided all the dealers with leads for people who were in the market to purchase a new car, who needed to be contacted. But Mercedes had also conducted their own survey and phoned a cross-section of the leads. They found to their horror that less than 40% of the leads supplied had actually received a telephone call from their local dealer. This chap was there. He was, why, oh why? Honestly, it was like Romeo and Juliet. Why, oh why? He remonstrated. If I'd have had a tomato in my pocket, it'd have been wearing it. I couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer, and I shouted, because they were crap and a waste of time. The next few minutes were like the stoning scene from The Life of Brian. While the people at the front were all asking each other who said that and craning their necks, trying to see, the dealers sat around me, were all nodding in agreement, but trying not to make it obvious. To the important people at the front, my dealer principal, who was sat next to me, had gone the colour of his shirt. He'd got this like bright pink shirt on, and he was doing a ventriloquist impersonation, talking out the corner of his mouth, and shut up! Really, realising what I'd done, I needed to defuse the situation and throw the bigwigs off the scent. So I turned round, pretended to look for the culprit. I smiled at the guys behind me and said, I think he said, blessed are the cheesemakers. They obviously thought Life of Brian was hilarious too, and they all burst out laughing. Now, I've been in the motor trade a long time, and I've witnessed some truly rubbish schemes to increase showroom traffic. And I can tell you that any idea which involves a free gift is just a waste of time and money. An even bigger waste of time is getting people to go for a test drive before they're included in some kind of draw to win a new car. For example, in 1978, there was a program on the TV starring Rock Hudson called Wheels. And it was about kind of the trials and tribulations of an American car manufacturer. And to publicise the series in the UK, the TV Times magazine ran a competition, and the prize was a new Opel Manta Silver 2. All you had to do was answer a question, then write a slogan in case there was a tiebreaker. This competition wouldn't have been too much of a problem for me, as it didn't involve thousands of people visiting our showrooms, sitting in all our cars, dirtying the footwells, taking our brochures, and then because they were too embarrassed to say that they'd only come to enter the competition, they wasted even more of our time by asking for a valuation on their part exchange and pretending they were really interested in changing the car. What did bother me at the time was that our dealership had a sales target from Opel which involved selling a certain amount of new Opel Mantas. It wasn't a great amount, but we were a small dealer and it was always a struggle. Sometimes we had to self-register the cars and then sell them off cheaper, second hand. So you can imagine my delight when we got a call from Opel to say that a lady in our area had won the car and we had to present it to her. To add insult to injury, we wouldn't get to supply the car, so it would show as a pumping vehicle by one of the big London dealers right into our area. Next time our Opel area manager came to visit us, he'd probably tell us that we weren't doing our job and had allowed another dealer to penetrate our POR, or prime area of responsibility. The question was designed to get the maximum response and was something, names and addresses, and was something like, what was Rock Hudson's Christian name? A Stone, B Pebble, C Rock. But to this day, I remember her winning slogan. It was, I like Rock Hudson because he's a dish, and I like Meals on Wheels. Now, two things sprang to mind. One, Rock Hudson was gay. Two, she didn't have a driving licence and she really wanted the money. So she would be putting the car up for sale in our area. And in doing so, she would take one of our prospective customers out of the market when she sold it. That's what you call a double whammy. Of all the dealerships in all the world, she had to win it from ours. Another brilliantly underwhelming campaign was win a Vauxhall Astra. Thousands and thousands of people were sent a key and told to trip along to the local dealer to try the key in the ignition of a special display car. If the ignition turned, the horn would sound and the indicators flash, and they'd be the proud owners of a new Astra. The showroom traffic was relentless, and we were inundated with people who had absolutely no interest in buying a car, but just wanted to try the stupid key. There were so many people coming that the car had to be hoovered out every few hours. We soon spotted that people were quite upset that the key didn't turn, and judging by the number of bent, discarded keys, either Uri Geller had entered the competition or a few of them was using an extraordinary amount of force to try and make it turn. The rules stated that before they were allowed to try the key, they had to put a postcard-sized entry form with all their details into a specially made cardboard postbox. I think the guy who invented the shredder got his inspiration from this, because there was absolutely no chance that any of these people would buy a car. Now, 20 years later, having suffered the same sort of stupid campaigns with Vauxhall, Peugeot, VW, Audi, BMW, and having wasted a large amount of my life dealing with the type of galactic time wasters which only competition like this could generate, I was sat here at this Mercedes meeting experiencing a moment of deja vu with a guy making a speech who apparently was moved to tears by the failure of his brainchild. Believe me, if anybody should have been crying, it was me. As sales manager, I had car sales targets from Mercedes-Benz, and then I had the targets from my employer, which were 20 to 30% higher than Mercedes targets. The salesmen were too busy dealing with genuine customers to bother contacting the leads that Mercedes had given us. And just to make things a little more complicated, the salesman's targets were broken down into new and used. The news were then broken down into A-Class, C-Class, E-Class, S-Class, SL, V and M-Classes. Then we also had accessory sales and finance targets. The paperwork was unbelievable. We had our own prospects to contact. One of our lads used to lock himself in the boardroom at the end of each month to try and work out if he'd reached his targets, or would he be getting a rollicking for reaching his cumulative, easy for me to say, selling enough cars, but failing to achieve his model mix. I found him in the showroom one day, standing on one leg with the other one crossed, as if he was desperate to go to the toilet. He was in a complete daze and just staring into space. I asked if he was all right and he didn't answer, so I prodded his arm. On reflection, I prodded his arm a little bit harder than perhaps I should have done, because he went down like a fell tree and only snapped out of his daze when he hit the Mercedes-Benz specification floor tiles. There wasn't enough hours in the day for me to complete the work I already had, so I took the list home and began ringing people and working through it. After speaking to well over 100 people and mostly getting the answer, "Sorry mate, I don't want a car. I was just entering the competition," the final straw was, "Good evening, it's Barry here from the Mercedes dealer. Could I speak to Stephen Cook, please?" The lady who answered said, What do you want him for? He's only 12 and he's upstairs doing his homework. That happened well before I got to 40% of the leads. So I've got nothing but admiration for the dealers who plodded on any further. In hindsight, the ones who plodded on regardless are probably the dealers who didn't return the calls of genuine Mercedes-Benz customers. But that's still not a good enough excuse for you EV salesmen not getting off your chair, not doing demonstrations, for EVs being advertised on Auto Trader as demonstrators with 10 miles on. You should be flogged. You ain't doing your job properly. Bums on seats, demos, phone calls, emails, open weekends, cars to firms, EVs as service loan cars. Every time somebody with a nice car comes in, they get an EV as a service loan car. Hearts and minds, keep it up. Let's get the motor trade back on track. And see how we go. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.